Hey guys, what's up? In this video, you are gonna learn about OSI model, that is Open System Interconnection Model. It is a model which tells you how the data or information is transferred during the communication through a network media like a wire or a Wi-Fi. This model divides the data into 7 layers called application layer, presentation layer, session layer, transport layer, network layer, data link layer and physical layer. So let's get started. First off, we will learn what is an OSI model. Wait a sec. Here you can see the 7 layers present in the OSI model. For the sender, the data packet travels from the application layer, next the presentation layer, session layer, transport layer, network layer, data link layer and physical layer. For the receiver, the data packets travel from the opposite direction, I mean from physical layer to the application layer. Now let's study all the layers one by one. First or the last layer, that is layer 7, is the application layer. Here. Now, it is the top layer of the OSI model. In this layer, the data is produced by the user or the software the user is using. It is the layer which is responsible for the services which are provided for the user. Like if you are using the Firefox is in the application layer, then the data needs to be traveled from the other layer. You will learn about it in just a second. It also specifies the protocol and the interface method, meaning if you are using Ethernet or Wi-Fi, it has a specific protocol to follow. It is used by the hosts in a communication network. Like here you can see the protocol is HTTP, as if there are HTTPS, more SMTPS, like that. Now let's move on to the layer 6, that is presentation layer. Here, a sec. Okay. Here you can see by the image that it is encrypting or decrypting the data. This layer ensures whether the outgoing data is in a general format which is required for network transmission and the incoming data is in the general format to application format. Basically, general format is good for a good of transmission of data and the application format is to read the data by the software. So, for sending a data, the data converted from the application format to general format, and while receiving the data is converted from general format to application format. The encryption and the decryption of the data also takes place in the presentation layer. As we have seen in the application layer that the software will act with the users, and the data encryption or decryption will take place in the presentation layer. Moving on to the layer 5, that is session layer. Let's zoom it in. Great. This layer controls the connection between the computers. There is a certain time period at which a connection is established, and that connection is maintained with the other system, and within that time period the data transferring takes place. If the time period is reached, then the session layer kills or terminates this connection. This layer is responsible for initiating, maintaining and terminating the session, meaning the connections. Okay, it will either maintain the connection or it will terminate the connection if the time period has been exceeded. it is generally for the security purpose. Here the response and the request is carried out by the client and the server. Moving on to the layer 4, that is transport layer. It is generally referred as the heart of the OSI model. It manages the transmission of the data across the network. This layer controls the flow of the data, segmentation, desegmentation, and error control. Segmentation is the process in which the data is divided into smaller units for transmission over a network, meaning it is divided into frames. For the sender, the data is divided into frames, and for the receiver, the frames is converted into data. Just as simple. It is mainly responsible for the transmission of the data from the user to the server. Moving on with the layer 3, that is the network layer. Where is network layer? Okay, great. It load up and I will zoom it in. Here you can see that the data packets or the data is converted into zeros and one and are traveled as a data packets. In this layer, the data is divided into a fixed number of data packets. These packets are assigned with the receiver's IP address. This layer also handles and the decisions needed to get the data from one point to the next point along a network path. It controls the network congestion over a network. Here you can see the data or the frames which have been created in the transport layer are then subdivided into data packets, and these data packets are assigned with the IP address of the receiver. Moving on with the layer 2, that is data link layer. In this layer, the data packets are divided into frames, and these frames have receiver's IP address in their headers. These layers check the possible error that might occur in the physical layer and corrects that error. Okay, here you can see the data has been converted, or the data packets have been converted into bits of data for the transmission in the physical layer. The data have been converted into frames, and in the receivers, and it is the opposite process. Moving on to the last and important layer, that is physical layer. Here you can see, in this layer the bits are converted to electronic signals for outgoing messages and the electronic signals to bits for incoming messages. I hope you know that all the data in our computer is stored and transferred in bits, that is ones and zeros. 8 bits form bytes. This layer manages the interface between the computers and the network medium. Here you can see from the data link layer. In the data link layer, it is assigned as ones and zeros, and that ones and zeros are converted into electronic signal. Here you can see a PWM signal, that is pulse width modulation signal. Here the uprise meaning 1 and the downrise meaning 0. This is 1 0 1 1 0 1, and the same process is then decrypted in the receiver's end. Same as the OSI model, another model has been created, namely TCP/IP model. This model is being currently used in the network, but OSI model is somewhat understandable. Both the models are just a virtual concept for just the understanding purpose. In the next video, we will learn about TCP/IP model. I hope in this video you learned something about or something valuable. I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, stay tuned.